Mr. Enjoy Your Distance.
Welcome to the Interlude with Drew.
What's up, everybody? This is Andrew McCain. I'm here with another episode of the Interlude with Drew. Today's episode is going to be slightly different from what we've been doing before, but I think it's going to be really, really dope. Today's guest is none other than Brittany Morissey. How you doing, sis? Good to have you on the show.
Hi, how are you? Thank you.
Absolutely. So Brittany is a nurse, and I think it's so dope that we're able to have an active nurse that has worked through the pandemic, still working now, worked before the pandemic, to be able to share her experiences and talk about what it's like being a nurse and everything like that. So the first question I wanted to ask was, when did you know that you wanted to become a nurse?
So right out of middle school, I don't know if it's just like a Caribbean thing. There's a lot of nurses and healthcare workers and Caribbean family members, and family members and families. And I kind of wanted to segue away from that because I'm like, this is so predictable. Like, what do you want to be? You're gonna be a nurse. And eventually, I was like, all right, so let me just try to get into a high school. It was really just trying to get a job out of high school. There was actually a school in Queens that trained you to be an LPN, which is like the base nurse job to have.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, let me try to get into the school. And I got in, but when I got in, they had just stopped the nursing program that year prior.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, oh, okay, so those plans are gone. And so then I kind of like went into a health careers situation, not really knowing whether I still wanted to do the nursing thing, but you had to have volunteer hours at a hospital, which was Mary Immaculate at that time, which is shut down now. And I had some experience with the elderly population, and that's really what kind of took it home for me. Just, you don't really know what people go through until you sit down and have a conversation with them. And then you don't really know how grateful you are to be in a different situation than they are. And that kind of just is what hit home for me. And after that, it was, I have a best friend from middle school, and we happened to literally along the way just come into cahoots and kind of have the same vision. And actually, she's also a nurse too. Our journey together from middle school was literally together every step of the way. So I always had somebody who knew exactly what was going on and what I was going through until she moved, and I went through the pandemic without her. But we'll segue into that later. But it was really that. It was being in high school, doing volunteer work, not knowing what I really wanted to do, and letting nursing find me rather than me finding it.
Wow, that's amazing. And just based off of what I know you have to be a special type of person to be a nurse. You can't just do it just because it makes money. Like you talked about, you not knowing what people go through until you sit and have a conversation. I think that empathy plays a huge factor, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that is the heart of nursing. And they can teach you that in terms of the term, but in terms of the compassion, if it's not there, and I can say that now, for being 5 years in, that if it's not there here, there's no way you're gonna make it. Right. Especially going through a pandemic, which no one saw coming. Right. If it's not in here, and I've seen nurses that have been nurses for 30 plus years after a pandemic say, that's it for me. Again, and so we'll segue into that later, but if it's not really deeply rooted into you, there's only so long you can go for the money.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So so you went to nursing school. How was that? I know most people, like a lot of people don't make it through, and everybody that does make it through, it seems like they're just like scraping, like, with everything in them to make it through. What was it like for you?
So, ironically, and not everybody knows this story, so it's interesting. After high school, I ended up going to a college in the Bronx. Went to do prerequisites for 2 years, waiting to get into the nursing program. The semester before getting into the nursing program, because they only opened up the nursing program one time a year, I actually had no school. Like I wasn't even enrolled in anything because I had already took every single prerequisite, like literally forced them into semesters just so I knew that I would be ready. But then you had to take a test to get into the nursing program during that semester prior. So I came back, my friend also. We were done at the same time. Literally, I pride myself on the fact of having a 3.99 GPA before getting into this nursing program.
Yeah.
Didn't matter, right? Because you could have had a 2.9, but you needed to pass that test. It didn't even matter.
Yeah.
So we went and we went to go take the test. And let's just say when we got there, when everyone's lined up doing their last minute studying, everyone had a different book than we had.
Ooh.
So we were like, that's interesting. Everyone else has the same book that they're studying from, but this is the book that we had that we were kind of told this is the one we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
Long story short, we literally both walked out of having the exam because you get the results right away.
Okay.
And this was the line to meet, and this was our score.
Ooh. Oh man.
Right.
Yeah.
So it literally hit us as soon as we hit the door, and we both had the biggest breakdown of life because we knew we would have to wait another year to try this again. And I don't know how else to say it, but I think I went into my first time biggest depression of life. And for somebody that I went through life with for a really long time, I didn't talk to her for maybe 2-3 months. I didn't talk to anybody.
Oh wow.
I was just like, what is my life now? So dramatic, I'm not gonna lie. Just completely dramatic. I'll say it now, but it was a very big thing for me because I'm like, I waited all this time just to get under a line, and that is what made the decision. It didn't matter how much work I put in before. It didn't matter what the GPA was. It didn't matter what you were involved in. You needed to get above that line, and you got right here. And there was no negotiation. Wow. They told us that off the bat.
Yeah.
So because it was so competitive, and because with CUNY, which is the City University of New York, it's cheaper to be able to do that. So again, didn't talk to her for 2 to 3 months. And then one day she kind of just called me and was like, listen, we gotta figure this out. I answered the phone finally. And she was like, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I'm not gonna go through this without you. And I'm gonna find a way for us to get in. It was late within that fall semester, and she went on a prowl for schools that were still taking applications. It came down to 2. One called us back and told us that, listen, we're not taking any more. Sorry, you have to wait. And then that one more that was left was like, come on in.
Wow. Okay. Great.
And that was NYIT in Old Westbury. Okay. And you never really know the blessing that God's gonna have for you until you get there. Because every step of the way, when we got there, she was president of the Student Nurses Association. I was vice president of Student Nurses Association. Yeah. I was on the dean's committee for nursing, like their representative. Yeah. Right. And so we were cool with every professor. We were class representatives. And so I think that had I been in the other school, that might not have been the case. Right. The networking was phenomenal. They sent us to Florida for conferences. It was just like all these opportunities are coming left and right at a place that I just never thought that I would be. Yeah, but nursing school in itself, probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I ate, slept, and drank that thing. Wow. And my mom talks about it to this day. My friend, she lived in Far Rockaway. She basically lived with us. We fell asleep around tables. I have pictures of them like literally capturing us sleep with 2 cups of coffee right next to us and 3 textbooks around us. Wow. People that follow me on Instagram can remember literally seeing us up at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, needing to be at school at 7 to take an exam. I was a little overboard. Like she would say, you know what, D, I'm going to sleep. And I'd be like, no. But then she would have to drive us in the morning because I was just too tired to go. Right. But it was rough. It was a rough couple of years. I can't equate it to anything else. Any other schooling that I've been through. It's a lot of material. It's I make the joke all the time that nursing tests is different from other tests because there's always 2 right answers and multiple choices, and you have to choose the one that's most correct.
Wow.
So both answers A and B can be correct, but the question is, which one is the most correct? And they taught us that on the first day, and it's like, well, this is not something you can play with. You have to know this thing. And people can find their way around whatever, but then when you get into the real deal, you know that this is something that you really need to know. Or our test that we have to take at the end to make us certified, it's not like, oh, you talk about, you study this, you study that. It's study everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when whatever you get on your exam in terms of what questions get thrown at you, it can come from the smallest part of your textbook that's in the corner. You know, the little parts in the corner that nobody really reads.
Yeah.
That's where the question is from.
Wow.
And so I will say that they prepared us well, because throughout nursing school, that's what they would do. They would take the questions from the little corners in the side that no one would read or think about. And then, you know, eventually you would get through it. But it was a very, very rough time. I will not tell anyone who's going into nursing that it's about to be easy. You need to breathe, sleep, eat that thing completely. Because between clinicals, between, you know, exams that are hands-on, like simulations where they give you real life situations that happen, you're juggling all of this plus life at the same time, right? And I only know it's possible. I didn't have, you know, a husband and kids and full-time job like everybody else. I was working one day at, God bless Walgreens, so one day a week at Walgreens,
They let you,
just to have gas to go back and forth, because that was in Long Island. But there were people that, you know, full-blown lives, full-blown full-time mom and dads, and they were tired, but they had a goal in mind, and it was, we're gonna make it through one way or another, and they did. And so anybody that's thinking about even the medical field, period, if you're not for it, there's no way you're making it through. And if you do make it through, when you get to the real deal, you can only last but so long.
Man. That's I'm just thinking about what I had to do that. So hats off to all who go through nursing school and actually make it in the career, because that's a different level of commitment right there.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Prior to the pandemic, so like, because you said you were 5 years in, so what was the most rewarding part for you of being a nurse?
Two things. I've always thought that being a nurse was more than just giving the medication and documenting, right? And I think that sometimes is hard, even for newer nurses, to grasp, because when you get in, you want to so much not make a mistake that you forget the fact that the person in the bed you need to have some sort of relationship with, right? Because no one knows your patient more than you do. And I'm glad that I learned that very early on. I had some really good preceptors when I first came in, and they kind of just wanted to embed that in me, that it's not like you don't just, okay, medications are due at 12 o'clock. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, here's your medication. You walk out, you document medication given, and it's done. You want to be able to say, hey, Mr. McCain, how's your day? Hey, Mr. McCain, how's life at home? Have you spoken to your wife today? You know, how you feeling today? You feeling down today? What is it that makes you happy? What is it that I can do to make your stay a little bit better? Nobody wants to be in the hospital, but since we're here, what are we going to do to make life a little bit easier? Right. And I learned that very early on. And I think that for me itself was most rewarding, to learn that early on, and to be able to say, every patient that come across, whether they're mad and angry about their life situation, because we do have that, and some of them are just angry and they project it on you, but it's not on purpose. It's being able to develop a relationship with someone who you don't know, but their sickness and their diagnosis brings you together, and you can be that person that they need, because, you know, some of them don't even have family, and you then become their family. So that for me is the rapport and the building a relationship with patients was number one. I always wanted to make sure that's the kind of nurse that I wanted to be. And I started off with that mindset from the very beginning. So that's probably the most rewarding. And then the second most rewarding, I would say, was knowing that I was knowing that I was being watched without knowing that I was being watched, right? So for your peers who are 20, 30 years in more than you, they might not express it to you, but you hear along the grapevines that you know, they're actually looking at you and looking up to you and seeing how you maneuver and seeing how you handle difficult patients sometimes. I mean, it was about my story essentially is I would say, especially, was like a year and a half maybe in, and I had an assistant nurse manager at night, because I worked at night, and she kind of just like was watching me, and I didn't know. And then one day she was just like, oh, I'm gonna go check on the other units. You wanna come? I'm like, okay, cool. It's kind of weird that you're asking me to go check on the other units with you, but cool. So we walk and we go say hi to everybody. Everybody okay on the other units that she was covering. And maybe 3, 4 weeks after that, she called me in the office and she was just like, so I know you thought that me asking you to come and see the other units with me was just like me just saying, I wanted company. But the truth of the matter is I'm leaving and I want you to take my position.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was just a year and a half in, and immediately I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's been a year and a half, sis. I need some time.
Yeah.
There's people here that have been here 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, even 20 years. You can choose one of them.
Yeah.
And she kind of just had that conversation with me that it's not about the amount of years that you're here. It's about what you show forth.
Wow.
And if I see something in you, sometimes what it is that people have to see things in you that you don't see in yourself.
Right.
And they have to shine the light to let you know that you're capable.
Yes.
Right. And so, they say, God doesn't call, he doesn't call, they don't call the qualified and qualify the called and all that other good stuff. And so that's really what resonated with me. I even had to have a conversation with my mom. She's like, you don't know if you're ever going to have this opportunity again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I don't like to make things, I try my best not to make things black and white, but sometimes it is difficult for people of color to get in certain positions. It is. That's the bottom line, right? It doesn't mean that it's every organization, because I don't believe that my organization is like that. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the reality is on an overall spectrum that sometimes it is difficult for people of color to get in certain positions. Right. And my mom is like, you turn this down, you never know if you're going to get this opportunity ever again. Mm-hmm. And I faced some backlash from my peers who happen to be older than me. Oh, she just got here.
Yeah.
Well, why did I? And she's gonna tell me what to do now, mm-hmm. right? And so in the beginning, it was a little rocky. And then I stayed in that position again for another year and a half. And then again, out of nowhere, pandemic happened to hit. Manager went out because she now is an NP and she happened to be pregnant. So she's on maternity leave. Middle of the pandemic, I get a phone call. Hey, just so you know, I'm not coming back, but I want you to take my position.
Wow.
I will never forget that day. It was a rough day in the middle of the pandemic. I'm in my car in the parking lot. She calls me and she's like, I think I'm ready to stay out, but you've been doing it. Mm-hmm. So, and you've been filling in for me while I'm gone. It's your turn. It's your time now.
Wow.
And again, self-doubt is a real thing. It really is a real thing. Because I was like, I got back to that point again where I'm like, oh, no, not nurse manager. I'll be anybody's assistant. I got you. But for me to be running the show now.
Yeah.
But because we were in the midst of a pandemic and it was just the very beginning, I had a lot of my staff almost counting on me to take that, which was a different end of the spectrum now. Because before it was, oh, she just got here. But now it's like, she's proven herself this much.
Yeah.
Who else to do it? Who else that knows us more? Who's been rocking with us through this entire thing? I mean, while she was out, I was on the night shift. Then I was on the day shift. Then I was doing nights and day shift at the same time, switching my schedule back and forth. It was nuts. Yeah. Tired is an understatement. Mm-hmm. And so eventually I was just like, okay, I've been rocking with them for this long. Let me step up again. Of course, I had to go through the formality and the interview process, and that was fine. I had like 3 or 4 interviews, I promise you, because they wanted to make sure they had the right person for the job. Every interview, I was never nervous, never nothing. Had about 6, 7, 8 people in front of me, and it was like, let God, if this is it, then this is what it's going to be. Got the phone call, you're good to go. But it was an easier transition because of the fact that I've been there. I've been going through the trenches with everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think just the pandemic itself and the environment that we were in, there wasn't even time for, oh, she just got here. Mm-hmm. It was, all right, we have somebody that's solid.
Yeah.
So that for me, again, that was my second most rewarding, is knowing that you're being watched when you don't even think you're being watched. And so, you want to always put your best foot forward. I tell that to people that I'm hiring now. You put your best foot forward at all times, because you really never know where just being yourself and being true to yourself and to your patients is going to get you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just like seeing the favor and
Right.
with your hard work, because I don't want,
Right.
we don't want to discount that, because I know you were working hard and it was noticed. So
Right.
I was able to get you in a great position and like
Mhm.
seemingly a quicker time than is
Right.
normal.
Very short time. Very short time. Very short time to grow up as a nurse.
Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So last year in 2020, I'm trying to think, for me as just a regular civilian, the first time I had heard something about a pandemic was probably late, well, not pandemic, but coronavirus. It was like late February, probably. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think anything of it because, every once in a while there's something and
Mm-hmm.
you'll hear about it for like a week or two and then it'll pass. So that's kind of what I attributed it to. Like, that's just another, like, not SARS, but like something to that effect. It's serious, but it'll be gone in just a little bit.
Another swine flu.
Yeah, swine flu, something like that. So when was the first time, if you can remember, that you had started hearing like whispers about
The
coronavirus?
whispers were the end of February. Our first patient in the hospital was like almost mid-March, beginning of March.
Okay.
And even then, yeah, okay, we heard about it. And it was like, all right, one patient, all right, two, all right, maybe five.
Mhm.
And then it was like the surge was just phenomenal the way that it happened, because it went from just a few to, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, what is going on here? And I will say, as a civilian on the outside, we were fighting a different kind of war. Like, we literally talk about it to this day. Like, we would come outside of the building, and it would be like we're stepping into a different world.
Wow.
A different kind of place. But when you walked into it, you knew from the time you stepped front foot of the door, even if it was not on a unit, you knew this, get your gear ready. Where's your armor? Because you're gonna need something to fight this World War III healthcare war that is about to go down. And in the beginning, again, we were just kind of like going with the flow. It was very scary for a lot of staff because things were so unknown. It was just like, okay, especially with the gear, right? Because I know everybody was hearing that, we're in a shortage of this, we're in a shortage of that. New York was the epicenter for COVID, period, right? So New York was getting it worse than anywhere else. And it was rough because it was like one day that, infection control and CDC would say, okay, all you need is a surgical mask.
Yeah.
Then it went from that to, you need a surgical mask and you need an N95. Then it was, you need a surgical mask, an N95, and a mask with a shield.
Yeah.
Then it was, you need all three plus a gown. Then it was, you need all three plus a gown plus a suit. So it was just like, are we protecting ourselves? What's the real story here?
Yeah.
Then it was, all right, if you go in a room with your gear on, make sure you take it off before you go into another room. I don't know if people really understand how difficult that is when you have 6 rooms.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, go into the room with that same gear. You're wearing that gear all day now, just no matter what, because everybody got the same thing. It's okay.
Yeah.
But that uncertainty of not knowing what's going to change the next day, and whether now everyone's putting themselves at risk, you don't know what's really protecting you. Right. We didn't have the issue where we didn't have enough gear. I know a lot of hospitals did. We didn't have that issue. It was there, but they were being very strategic with it. Okay, you get one N95 a day. Okay, maybe you can change your N95 today. Okay, maybe you need to use this one N95 for 2 days. Hold on. Right? So it just depend on where we were in that moment. But there was never a time where someone needed something and it was like, oh no, we don't got it for you.
Yeah.
Because people were always given the opportunity to be protected.
Right.
So that beginning month was very, very scary for a lot of people because we just did not know.
Yeah.
You didn't know what to expect. And the more we turned around, we went from 5, 6, 7, 8 patients to, okay, one floor is designated to just COVID. And before we knew it, every single floor in my hospital, every single floor, I kid you not, no exaggeration, was for COVID patients.
Oh my.
Our lobby area where you walk in and go, oh, I want to go see my friend, on the lobby area turned into a triage.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, and we had like 3 lobby areas. Every single one of them had beds.
Man.
Right? Our ICU, we had to extend it and literally ask the hospital next door, can we have a space
Wow.
to have ICU beds.
Really? Wow.
Right. We had patients that didn't have COVID come in, very seldom. So we now had to have another floor in a children's hospital
Yeah.
for adult patients that were non-COVID.
Oh my goodness.
We have a nursing home next door. We then had to ask them for a space
Really?
to now have patients. It was I don't even know how to explain it. It was the most craziest thing I've ever experienced in my life. So where people are on the outside are like, you know, we're on lockdown, you know, we're on a pause, and everyone's at home, and they're all, if this thing's really real, no, this hospital was packed. It doubled its own capacity, right? So rooms that were only one bed, they had to make room and put things down just to put another bed in there because we literally had nowhere to put people.
Wow.
And it wasn't like, oh, these are people that were just testing positive and okay, they're fine. No, these are people that were really sick, really sick. And again, it wasn't like it was just hitting the elderly population. I can tell you now that I've watched 20 and 30-year-olds take their last breath in front of me.
Oh my God.
With no past medical history of anything.
Wow.
So it was a real thing, and it was a big deal it wasn't just the nurses, it wasn't just the doctors, you know, there were those unseen heroes that no one really talks about, like the respiratory therapist that is running to get somebody oxygen. It's the man that picks up the garbage in the room that he has to now put himself at risk or herself at risk, open the room and go to all these rooms, not knowing what's gonna hit him when he's just going in just to reach for the garbage, because first it was, if you touch somebody, you're gonna get it. Then it was, if you breathe the same air that you get somebody, you're gonna get it, right? So there are some really unsung heroes that we tend to forget.
Yeah, we don't talk about
we don't talk about them. Our nursing assistants, they were killing themselves. Like it was, our nurses ended up from where they were 5 and 6 patients to 10. Right? We had travel nurses from all over the place coming. It was just one of those things that if you were not in the building, there's no way even me explaining it, you would really be able to understand what it was. And there are people dropping like flies every single day. In the position that I was in, I had to run to those emergencies, whether they were on another floor or not. So it wasn't just my floor that I was covering.
Wow.
And so I would go through 20, 16, 15 emergencies a day and watch these people either get intubated and sent off to ICU, or literally somehow in these emergencies, I ended up being like the iPad person because we didn't have any visitors, right? So people were taking their last breath in front of us. We were their family. We were the ones that were holding their hands. I remember literally holding an iPad with 4 siblings on it. And their dad was the one that was going down, and it was them just crying and literally saying to him goodbye through an iPad. And on that iPad, and during that time, that's when he took his last breath. That's how they saw him go out.
And that was your idea to do the iPad, right?
So it wasn't our hospital literally got to a point where it was like, what are we gonna do? So they actually ordered a bunch of iPads, and they took staff members. So now remember, surgery is closed. So all those outpatient ambulatory surgery places, at least they were able to use that staff now. They came in, they can't really do what we do because that's not what they're used to. So they became the iPad team. And they would come around and they would not have to put themselves at risk just to go in the room and say, hey, do you want to say hi to your family today?
Yeah. Wow.
You know, and so that's what it was. It just happens. It just so happened that during these, what we call rapids or emergencies, when people are decompensating, that I ended up with the iPad. I just always ended up with the iPad. Here you go. And it was, I remember that day with the siblings, somebody looked at me holding it with tears running down my eyes. And they're like, are you good? And I'm like, I'm not. And someone had to take over. And I literally had to go get myself together in the hallway. When I got in the hallway, a nurse that has been there for over 30 years was having a whole breakdown. And I was like, oh, so it's not just me. It's not just me, literally. And it also brought us together because, you know, managers, we don't always see each other. And it was that one time where there was like 3 managers were passing each other in the hallway, and we're just shaking our head, and we leaned up against the wall, just leaned up, and all 3 of us just started just bawling because there was no words to explain what was happening in that moment. How is it that all these people are dropping like flies? How is it that this 30-year-old that has no past medical history can get COVID and within 2 days not be able to breathe, get intubated, and while intubated, stop? And there's no way to save them. We literally felt helpless. There was no way to fight this thing. This was like straight from, like, I mean, you know, whatever, we're churchy, straight from the pits of hell. This thing was crazy.
Yeah.
And sometimes with some patients, I'll tell you, it was like a 2-week thing. They'll be fine for a week. We're getting through it. And somehow the second week, I remember a lady, I thought she was going home. She was supposed to be discharged the next day.
Wow.
And the day before, all of a sudden, she's intubated for a very long time. I was still close to her family. I still talk to them to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally held her hand the whole time. You got it, Miss Marie. You got it. You're gonna get through this. I went to see her in ICU every single day that I was on. She wasn't even on my floor anymore. I was like, this lady has to get through this. And she didn't make it.
Oh man.
She didn't make it.
Wow.
I had 2 Mr. Baileys, held their hand right before.
Wow.
One of them literally looked me in my set and said, you know, Deidre is actually my first name.
Yeah.
And he literally said, Deidre, I'm gonna fight through this thing. 2 days later, he was gone.
Man.
So it wasn't an experience like no other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you weren't in it, I can only explain it to you so much, but even just explaining it is not enough to really detail the mental the mental strain that it had. Because even now as a new manager, right now I'm having to deal with COVID itself, and then 70 staff members who all have their own issues, who are all scared, who are all coming to me saying, what's happening? What are we going to do now? Right? Then of course I got to worry about my own family and myself.
Yeah. Definitely.
So it was quite a mental strain, a mental fight.
Wow.
Physically, of course, we're tired, but I think for me, my mental was the one thing I was like, I need to keep this intact.
Yeah.
Because I had moments where I thank God I had an office, go in there, cry, literally let it out, and go back outside like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't show my staff that I was fighting a different fight.
Yeah.
Because they needed somebody leading them that was ready to hold down the fort.
Man. Wow.
Yeah, it you know, and then we would walk outside and everyone's, you know, whoever's outside, they're, you know, chilling, and all right, I'm going back home now and going to go get my stimulus check and I'll be fine. And you know, like no, but let's be real and talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Because, and I'll say for nurses specifically, a lot of us didn't get a stimulus check.
Yeah, right.
Everybody like, oh, I'm waiting for the next one. I'm still waiting for my first one.
Right.
Right. So people were just like, it was all about, okay, I can stay home, I can work from home. Healthcare workers we can't work from home.
Right.
If we're not in there, who's gonna save the day? Who's gonna do what we need to do? So and then, you know, with our hospital having so much, we had people that were actually like recording. They were doing a documentary at the same time.
Oh, really?
So there is a documentary that should be out soon. I think I had posted it on my Instagram where they kind of did like a little trailer. And I'm probably going to do that again, just in kind of like refocus and see when it's actually going to come out. Yeah. But it gives, it's like literally the raw.
Yeah.
It's raw, right? Raw footage of exactly what we were going through.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes, you know, a lot of the staff to this day, after things started to die down, they really had to say to themselves, you know, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Can I really go through another surge like that again? Yeah. I had one staff member, I'll tell you, was probably the saddest thing. She happened to get COVID. A lot of my staff members also, I cut in half because they all got it.
Wow.
Cut in half, literally. So I had about 70, I had about 35 left because every single one of them started dropping like flies.
Wow. Thank
God I didn't lose any of them to it, but a lot of them had quite a fight to get through it. And one happened to, I mean, we can't say that this is what happened, but essentially, if we just were going to be real, she brought it home. Her husband got it. He got admitted and he died.
Oh my goodness.
So now she's living with that, you know, that reality that I could have been the reason why my husband's not here anymore.
Wow.
It was a very rough time for the entire unit, right? Because now everybody's like, I got kids at home.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah. That's.
But I also would say that is the one time in my entire career that I've ever seen healthcare workers. Again, and I'm talking about the man or the woman that picks up the garbage, the person that makes the beds, the person that delivers material. We've never been so together.
Mm-hmm.
We've never. I will almost say we're not even as together as we were then, that as we are now.
Okay.
Right, because it's not as bad at this point. But at that point, it was like everybody had to lean on somebody, and it didn't matter whether you was red and yellow, black or white.
Yeah.
If you needed somebody to lean on in that moment, somebody that's just walking by in the hallway just to give you a hug, you know, people weren't hugging. We were hugging because sometimes you really just needed a hug.
Yeah, right.
So it, again, unexplainable. That's the best that I can say. We got through it. But there were some battles that we had to fight. And again, like I said, I had my own life outside. I was trying to still be in church. You know, church was locked down, but we were still doing Zoom.
Yeah.
So we were still having praise team practices and all that other stuff. And, you know, if I came off a night shift, I would try to go to church in the morning and then go back to work at night. My schedule was kind of just like all over the place. And I was trying to be, you know, superwoman until at some point it was just like, I'm not sure if I can continue doing it this way. I got to take care of myself. And believe it or not, I went through that entire surge, going into rooms and untouchable to COVID at that time.
Wow.
Because eventually I did get it, but it wasn't until this January.
Not during the height of it.
Right. It wasn't, which made it even more confusing to everybody else because it was like, you were dead stamp in these rooms, holding people's hands, having them blow in your face.
Hugging people and stuff, yeah.
And now, when it's kind of like dying down, here you go.
Yeah.
I said the same thing to myself. How is this possible?
Right.
And I hate the fact that I had it because of what I went through, but I'm grateful for what I had because it also made me more grateful to the fact that, wow, I really was somebody for these people that had, when I say these people went out suffering, if it was anything compared to what I went through for those 3 weeks of having COVID, they went out suffering. 3 weeks of a fight.
Wow.
3 weeks of literally moments of my mom saying, I don't know if she's gonna make it out of this.
Wow.
Three like days and days of not being able to tolerate food, not being able to breathe, chest pains, things that waking up in the middle of the night, hospital admissions in my own hospital, right? Me telling the doctor, you know what, if I'm gonna go out, I need to go out at home. I don't want to see you guys as the last people that I see before I go.
Wow.
Right. So if these people went through what I went through and me just experiencing that for that time, they went out suffering.
Yeah. Wow.
They really went out suffering.
Wow.
And I was grateful to know that I was holding hands of people that at least there was somebody there.
Yeah, somebody. Yeah, because
there was somebody. Because it was hard, and you know, for doctors and such that you know have essentially kind of went through this before. Sometimes as healthcare workers, when we're there long enough, things you don't really feel the compassion anymore. It's like, okay, this person is 85-year-old, history of diabetes, renal failure, stage 4 cancer. They're probably gonna go anywhere, moving on.
Yeah, right.
And so you kind of lose that a little bit. And sometimes I had like arguments with people in that moment of like, hold on, this person still matters. What you mean they not getting what you mean they're not able to get intubated?
Yeah.
What you mean we're gonna skip over them and go to this next person? No, this person deserves a chance too, because we were having a shortage, right?
Yeah.
Of it's missing me now, but we were having a shortage of things that were going to keep people alive.
Yeah.
And that was another fight because they had to get to a point where it was like ventilators. It got to a point where it was like, well, who's going to make it more? Who we're going to give it to?
Yeah.
Right. And so when you develop these relationships with these patients and you hear, oh, nah, this one's not a candidate. It's like, what you mean? You get emotional. It's like you want to literally physically fight. No, you gonna get. I literally got to with one guy. I was like, he's gonna get one. His daughter's not here. Fine, whatever. He gonna get one. And I knew deep down in my soul he wasn't gonna make it. But give him a chance.
Yeah, fighting chance.
And so they did. They gave him a chance, and they were trying to hit me with the "I told you so." But I'm like, but he lived for 3 extra days. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, right.
I'm okay with that. But it was that was also another difficult thing where it was like, who's going to get the ventilator?
Man.
Essentially, we had more than I think a lot of situations other hospitals were in, but there were moments where it was like, is it really worth putting this person on the ventilator when another person who's a little bit more healthier could need it in the moment that we have him on it?
Wow.
Yeah. And how do you explain that to a family member? I know you want everything done, but we just don't have the equipment for everything to be done.
Man, that's
not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool. Right. So
and it's
but we made it. We made it through as best as we could.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about like coming on the outside and seeing what people were really talking about and like being consumed with. And it's like, wow.
No, I mean, I saw people saying it's fake. There's no way that there was that many people in there. Oh, all these people can't be dying of COVID. No, granted, there are people that had a lot of other, prior history things that probably would have taken them out. COVID heightened everything else.
Yeah.
Right. So if you came in with issues that maybe you felt like you had under control, once COVID hit you, it put all those issues on 10.
Oh.
So your organs now that were just kind of like fighting through the renal failure that you might have had, or your organs that are, kind of fighting through the cancer or whatever, now you're times 10 because COVID's in the body rocking every single organ that you got. And so when your labs are here and your vitals are here, and then they switch places, people don't understand that dynamic, right? And doctors really have to figure out what's more important. Do we handle the labs? Do we do the blood pressure at the same time? Do we give them fluid, but they're going to be in fluid overload? But what's the risk that what outweighs what?
Right.
That's difficult. And to do that for double the capacity amount of patients that's in a hospital with not that many staff members, how do you maneuver? So when people are like, oh, that's fake, that's this, that, and the third, I actually had someone say to me, a few people say to me, I still didn't believe COVID was real until you got it.
That long?
And I just got it in January.
Wow.
I still didn't believe that COVID was real until you got it. Until I saw that you were down. Until I saw that you could not answer my phone calls for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So, it's hard, and I get there's so many theories and things out there that kind of sway people back and forth. This vaccine situation is a whole nother conversation, right? Yeah. And so I get it. I understand. But when you have someone actively in there telling this thing is not a joke, believe it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Believe it. We ain't making things up. We're in there. We ain't got time to be making stuff up. Oh, nobody wants to be going through this.
Right.
But I'm glad we made it through. I'm glad my staff made it through. I'm glad I worked for an organization that really was just kind of trying to pull people together and do the best that we can. They were offering, counseling and all that other stuff, that holistic nurses coming to us to just make sure everybody was okay. Chaplains coming up, like, anybody need a prayer, I got you.
Yeah.
Just little things. We had outside places could send us food. Patients who had a good amount of money, some of their families were just like feeding us every single day. So there were some things that was like, all right, let me give you guys a pick me up.
Yeah.
To get along the way, because it was rough. It was rough. But we got through it, and we still have, now we're trying to find out where the norm is again. And that's really what the issue now is, that where's our norm again? And where, you're hearing so much about this new strain that's possibly coming. Everybody's like, oh man, come on, I don't know if I can do this again.
Yeah.
I got people that's literally saying to me, if we got to do this again, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm telling you now, I'm out. So, and it is what it is, but we've done the best that we can, and we've gotten a lot of support. And I think that it takes a lot. Again, no matter what, you became essential and you didn't even know you were essential.
Right. Yeah.
Like, at one point we were like, at one point I literally said, I don't want to be essential no more. I don't want to be essential anymore, because essential means put your life on the line.
Yep. Man.
Right. That's the UPS worker. That's even the people outside. People that was on the outside. Then the supermarket guys didn't even know how essential they were until we had one of those. Mm-hmm. Right. Until it happened. So it's a lot, but we made it through. And I think even just as New Yorkers and tri-state areas, people that were like really hit hard, we came together pretty well. I think we really did.
That's incredible. So I don't want to hold too much of your time, but I'm so thankful that you were able to paint this picture, because I've talked to some nurses and they've shared their experiences, but like just the way how you broke it down and like the examples you gave, and being that you were in New York, it just makes me feel it so much stronger, like so much like gratefulness to you all that were on the inside working tirelessly, while, like you said, we were on the outside. After a while, you kind of adjusted to the lockdown. People talking about Netflix shows and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Everybody had time to watch all their shows, binge watching and popcorn eating, and who's and again, a different fight. So shout out to everybody that did something with their quarantine time. No, shout out to that. There are people that found new talents within themselves that they didn't even know they had. Like, they used their time wisely. And I can appreciate that much. You weren't in there with us, but you did something with your time. You weren't just sitting here doing nothing and thinking that, all right, I'm going to just wait for the next check. I appreciate people that really was like, you know what? Let me do something. I'm home. Whether it was a weight loss journey, or now I know how to sew, or now I know how to draw, or now I'm playing a new instrument. I've seen a lot of things that I'm like, well, look at you. Well, then quarantine bless you. Ain't that something? So that's fine. That kind of just made me feel better, to know that people wasn't just sitting home like, all right, what's the next Netflix show?
Right.
Like, so and I will also say, I had people that would text me and say, sometimes I just needed, are you okay?
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah.
You hanging in? I had people that I didn't really even speak to like that. Just kind of message me on Instagram like, I know you got some things going on right now. Are you okay?
Yeah.
That meant a lot. Just those three. Are you okay?
Yeah.
So it is what it is. We're doing the best that we can. I'm gonna put a little tidbit in the vaccine thing. I know people feel a lot of different ways about this. Oh, it just came out, blah blah blah. And I'm gonna tell you, just my own opinion. In the beginning, I was like, oh no, they just made this. I ain't got time. We're not doing that. Y'all don't know what y'all making. I'm not doing that. But when we say, after I went through COVID, I literally was like, when I came out of it, I said, give me whatever you got.
Yeah.
Because if it means not having to go through that again, then I'm willing to take that chance. Personally, everybody can do whatever they want to do. And I'm saying that because a lot of people have asked my opinion on it. So I'm openly saying what it is. I am fully vaccinated now. And in the beginning, I literally was like, oh, nah, let everybody else go first. And let's see how it works out for you. And if it works out okay for you, then maybe I'll go ahead and take it. After I had COVID and went through that 3 weeks of hell, I said, if you make something tomorrow, I need it today. Get it right? And if you make it tomorrow, I need it today. It was that urgent for me. Because I was like, I cannot go through that again. So I would behoove people to really think about the risk and the benefits for themselves, and not be so quick to listen to what everybody else got to do. Your own research, right? And a lot of people have their own theories and what they think and blah blah blah. And is it Moderna? Is it Pfizer? Is it Johnson and Johnson? Have my own feelings about Johnson and Johnson because they had some issues in the past with some other things, right? Baby powder, come on now. So I understand that. I get it, right? But overall, do your own research. I will say, don't just take what you hear and run with it. They say believe half of what you hear. And this I'm trying to remember the saying, but it's like, don't believe anything you hear and only half of what you see. Right. So you just kind of gotta like do your own research. And if at the end of the day you say, you know what, this is not for me, God bless you. And hold on to the faith that you'll be okay, because again, it's not everybody. People that you thought was gonna get it, they chilling right now. And it was the people that you didn't think that was gonna get it, those are the ones that got it.
Exactly.
Right. So again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own body. The only thing is that there's so many logistics now you can't go to school unless you get it. You can't be in school in person. I just saw that. I'm still in school now. Right, trying to get my life together in a different way, and it's like you can't go in person unless you got it. I have my own thoughts about that. You're putting people in the bind now, right? Kind of almost like you ain't got no choice but to get it. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with, you can't do this to better your life unless you do this. That's, it is what it is. But we just got to roll with the punches. And again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. My ultimate just whatever is to say, be safe.
Yeah,
Be as safe as you can be.
definitely,
And that's it.
definitely. Yeah, I remember like in the heat of it when you first shared the story. I think it was about Mr. Bailey
Oh,
with the iPad and the kids. I was like, man, because I knew it was bad, but like hearing somebody that given a firsthand experience, I definitely was praying,
mhm.
and everybody else.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate it.
I definitely want to let you know that you are appreciated. You, all the
Thank
nursing
you.
staff, the doctors, and like you said, the people that change the trash and everybody that
Mhm.
had to risk their lives during that time. I just wanted to kind of be able to give you a chance to share your story and let people really be able to hear what it was truly like, because now that things have calmed down a little bit, sometimes it's easy to forget how bad it really was. So,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we truly appreciate your efforts, your sacrifice, your heart, because a lot of the stuff that
Mhm.
I know you nurses do, you don't. It's not like written in your job description. You don't
Right.
necessarily have to do it, but that goes along
Right.
with having to have the right heart in order to be a nurse. So you
Right.
are definitely appreciated, and I pray God gives you
Thank
more
you.
grace, and that I pray
Thank you
things get
so much.
somewhat easier, because I know it's never going to be easy, but somewhat easy.
Never gonna be easy. It's just every day is not gonna be a good day, but it's as good as you would allow it to be, is what I tell my staff every morning, every single morning.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's
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 good.
that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you again.
But
Once again, this is Brittany Morris,
thank you.
and we're so thankful that you were able to take this time, because I know your schedule is super busy as you described. So thank you once
That's all
again.
right.
Thank you once again. So this has been another episode of the Interlude with Drew. As I always say, take it one day at a time. Only what you do for Christ will last, and keep it pushing. I'll catch you all next time.
That's right. All right. Bye guys.
It's the Interlude with Drew. It's the Interlude with Drew.
Welcome to the Interlude with Drew.